When my oldest was about a year and a half or so, it was recommended, or maybe she was 2, it was recommended to me that she go to therapy. And of course, I'm thinking, why would a 2-year-old need therapy? How badly could I have screwed her up? But the idea was that it was to support her in whatever was going on with her. And at that time, she was having a hard time with me dropping her off at a morning preschool. The preschool was I think it was like 3 or 4 mornings a week, and it was from 9 to noon. And as I was, dropping her off, she would cry like little babies do, but it wasn't stopping. Like, she would cry like every time for a while. So the head director of the program, which was actually at a university, so this was their human development program, and so the teachers were students taking human development classes, and the overseeing teacher was the director. So anyway, we had our little meeting, and she recommended that, she might need to go into some kind of therapy. Now, of course, for little children, they're not going to sit there and go, well, it's really sad when my mom leaves me and I, have some abandonment issues. It was sand tray therapy. She was saying it's like every child has watched, Leave It to Beaver, and they have long for this security of rhythm, of routine. And, first I couldn't quite understand what she was talking about, but once she explained it to me, it made sense. And thus we ended up creating more rhythm in her life. We ended up, having dinner at a consistent time. We had a routine that went around her bedtime. And lo and behold, we had an actual decent bedtime. Because before that, I was just letting her go to sleep when I thought she would be tired. It's like, okay, let's try to put her down, say at 7 or 8 o'clock. Oh, she's not going to sleep, so she must not be tired. Let's get her up again. At one time, and I think now she was in kindergarten, there was going to be a woman coming to speak at our neighboring junior college. And the woman, Rohima Baldwin, wrote a book called You Are Your Child's First Teacher. And I had read the book, and I thought I had all these wonderful little ideas, a little bit like, oh my gosh, how could I, strive to be a better parent and all of that. Well, at that point, I had 2 children. I was exhausted. And I thought, I'm going to go out and see this woman speak. And, nothing's going to make parenting easy. We're going to go out there to go listen to her, and she's going to tell me about routine, and she's going to tell me about warm clothes, or she might tell me about these things, but it's never going to make parenting easy. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, it may not make it easy, it'll make it easier. And I did a survey and was asking you, my viewers, what is it that you're looking for? And one thing that many people checked off was the, idea of getting some tools. And it's funny because I thought, what tools do I have? What do I use? Well, I did mention in another, episode that I don't necessarily do a lot of meditation, but I do lead a lot of meditations, when I work with groups, because I love, guided imagery, and I love doing group meditation, and I can go off to La La Land. But as a regular practice by myself, I don't often take the time. So I could sit here and meditate for you and lead you through a guided meditation, but that doesn't seem very practical sometimes. And it may not be the only go-to that we have, right? There are lots of tools out there. My intention is to really empower you. And there may be tools along the way that I can offer that will make things easier. But the bottom line is that becoming who we truly are, stepping into our power, experiencing joy, may not be easy. I can only say that it can be easier, possibly, if you try certain things, right? So one of the suggestions with my daughter was she might have a meltdown or a fit, right? And the therapist said, when she's having her little, fit and crying in her tantrum, what you do is you hold her. And as you hold her and she's trying to, get out and she's yelling and, all of this, it's like staying present, right? Staying present and holding her and saying, I see you, I love you, I'm here. And the idea is that eventually, after all that rage just sort of, works its way out, she softens into my arms, right? it's not about stopping the fits. It's not about suppressing the rage or making everything so perfect that she never has a meltdown, because we all have them. We all have these moments where life gets tricky and tight and we want to cry. And so what I offer in this show are tools along the way. But what I believe is that we are on this life journey, and we may find tools that make it easier, but what I certainly don't have are answers to the end result that will suddenly be like, we've arrived, right? I can offer you what comes to me that can support you along your journey. But again, it's not the end all. If you do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're done. It's how do we move through life as it gets crunchy? How do we breathe through our fear? How do we move into places that bring us into who we are? So with that, we will explore this idea of tools and tightness, and moving through things easier than what we might if we didn't have these tools or support. But again, just to be clear, this isn't how to get from A to Z and be totally happy when you do those things. Wait. One more thing. The hat. I forgot the hat again. I wanted to share with you this one I knitted for myself. I knitted it out of wool and some mohair fabric yarns. And I wanted to clarify with the last hat that I showed you that my son knitted, he actually didn't knit that for me. He knitted it for his grandpa. And his grandfather has since passed away. He passed away in December of 2011. And after we moved his grandma out of her place, I found the hat and claimed it. So anyway, to clarify, my hat, his hat, these are hats that we like. I'll show you more hats. It reminds me of the book, Do You Like My Hat? So I'm trying really hard not to lose it. As I mentioned in my last episode, is I do try to avoid malls. Well, unfortunately, Christmas is right around the corner, and my girls all wanted to shop at the mall. And of course, I spent some time going up and down several aisles. Even though we believe in the parking fairy, she wasn't very helpful. So we decided, and especially because I'm not a mall person, to drop them off and I would go elsewhere. But where is the elsewhere? Well, it had to be another store because I have to do my shopping, and I haven't even started. I'm really grateful that Santa purchases only one gift for each of my children, one unwrapped nice little gift, and then fills their stockings with really basic things like toiletries, toothbrush, deodorant, hairbands, really, really nice stuff. So I don't have to worry about that. Santa takes care of that. In terms of what we get for our kids, we have 4. We generally get 1 or 2 fundamental gifts. So it could be a book, it could be a pair of pajamas, it could be shoes. My girls really need shoes, but I think that one of the other siblings did that, so that was kind of nice. Anyway, so Christmas is very simple for us, but we just have to make it happen, of course. And being the busy people that we are, we don't usually do it so early. Instead, we wait until kind of late. And that's kind of late. And it's not only kind of late in the season, it's kind of late in the day. So, what is my coping mechanism? Well, specifically, I started to lose it. Talked to my husband, said, I'm tired. I can't do this. I just can't do it. It's like between all the energy of all the people in the crowds and all the stress. So what I realized is I needed a timeout. So I'm going to get my girls now, retrieve them from the mall. We're going to go home, even though home is a good 40 minutes from the mall, and then have dinner, relax, regroup, have that normalcy again, that rhythm of the day, sitting around the table like we normally do, have a normal dinner, and then my husband can and I can decide, are we ready to go back out and face the crowds. It's Christmas Eve morning, and my husband and 2 oldest are already out and about. They left at about 5 this morning because my college girl is a swimmer, and regardless of whatever it is, she has to swim. She did qualify for the Olympic trials that are coming in June of 2016, so she can't just really stop swimming. Anyway, so my son, why would he want to get up early? But he has a basketball game on Saturday, and so he needed to go and get some hours in the gym and, throw some hoops. So anyway, they'll be back soon enough. But meanwhile, my girls are still waking up slowly. I've got a fire going. And I just wanted to connect again about this whole idea of tightness and tools and such. So in my last little snippet, I was having a meltdown, and it was actually a pretty, I would say, a refined one, and partly because I had caught myself before I went over the edge, right? That I was having that awareness, okay, things are not going well, red flag, red flag. So what I wanted to share were some ideas that had to do with how do we recognize, what's going on with us. And this isn't mine at all. I actually learned this many, many years ago from whether it was Al-Anon or whatever. It was a 12-step program. And whether they learned it from them, I don't know. Anyway, who originated this idea doesn't, I can't give that person credit. Anyway, it's the acronym HALT, H-A-L-T. And when we get too hungry, angry, tired, or lonely, those can be signs that we need to halt. We need to stop what we're doing and gather our own energy and restore, right? So what I realized why I was having my meltdown is I was probably getting hungry. It was evening. Angry, I totally could feel that anger just rising and rising. And the triggers for me specifically are I don't do well in crowds and at the mall and such. And that just triggers me altogether. But when I look at that a little deeper, part of that is around Christmas time. My husband and I rarely have extra funds. In fact, we don't have a savings, we don't have credit cards, and we literally live month to month and usually way behind each month. And so it's really hard when we have to suddenly go into this environment where it's like, buy this, buy that. And fortunately, my kids are very, I would say, appreciative and grateful, so they really don't expect a lot from us. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that we don't want to offer up, that one something. And like I said, we only get them one or two small gifts, very practical gifts for Christmas, but nonetheless, it can be stressful. So that anger was certainly arising. Lonely, yes, because again, it's that sense of isolation of who I am from the rest of the world, right? And I don't mean the whole world, but just that mainstream world that this is normal, that this kind of rushing around and such, I can get caught up in it, but it really makes me feel discombobulated. So I can often feel lonely when I'm in an environment that isn't like spirited. And then, of course, tired. By the end of yesterday, or whenever that day was, that was a couple days ago, I was pretty wiped out. The good thing is we did come home and we went back to that routine, back to that rhythm, back to that simplicity of our lives, right? I mean, I live in these beautiful woods. Oh, you really can't see out the door here, but there's just trees and more trees. And that to me is just so fulfilling. Having quiet mornings, if we can wake up and just have a little bit of softness, a little bit of quietude before the day starts. Now, of course, it's easier to do on a day like Christmas Eve, but my husband, he's a morning person, and a part of his routine is, and I had mentioned this in another episode, we don't have the heat that you turn on. We don't have a central heating system. So his ritual is to wake up really early and start a nice warm fire for his family. And there's nothing like me getting to stay in a nice warm bed and then hear that sound of the door opening and closing, right? And it's like, my house is getting warm. So when we find ourselves in those crunchy moments, the first thing is to recognize, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? And the second is, how do I pull away from the environment that might be triggering it to regain myself and my center? The other tool I use with people, and especially, I had mentioned, holding, the baby that is crying and the child that is having a fit. How do we hold ourselves? One thing is through our breath. I mean, huge. If I can just breathe deeply for a while, then I can often just bring myself into what is here, what really matters. If you are feeling the stressors of everyday life, or even of the holiday season, whatever it is you celebrate, remember to breathe. Remember to come back to that routine, that normalcy of your life. Remember to appreciate the simple things and pay attention to what might be triggering you. And it's not that you have to remedy or fix those things right away, but at least having that awareness helps you recognize that it's something that is pretty manageable usually. So if you're hungry, it's like, oh, I need to eat. If you're angry, I need to breathe, call a friend, have that connection that brings me in. If you're lonely, again, that connection. So oftentimes, I do have to call my husband. And if I'm in a receptive mood, then he can, hit me at just the right place and say, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I'll actually hear that. Other times it'll be, no, it's not going to be okay. And, that goes on for a little while. And then, of course, tired, and with this being what it is, the holidays getting so crazy, we can often run ourselves ragged. And I will say, the society being what it is, we can often run ourselves ragged. Hold on, socks. I have to show you my socks. Hand-knitted woolen socks. So I do teach, as I mentioned, sock knitting. And my daughter knitted these when she was in 5th grade. Her twin sister knitted a pair too. She just hasn't finished sewing in the ends, and they're now in 8th grade. So hopefully one day she'll finish that. I'm not going to do it for her. And then hopefully they'll still fit one of us.
I think that's zero first. Oh my gosh, girls, please look what we got. GoPros.
Oh my god.
Sick.
What are GoPros?
I'm so excited to take it to Florida.
What are GoPros?
You can take them anywhere. You can take them underwater. You can take
What do you
it.
Is it gonna be
Huh?
easier
What
to
are
It's a
watch
GoPro.
movies
You
on
can just do. It's like a camera, but you can do
Where did you
anything.
get
That's
it?
awesome. We got iPad minis.
Oh.
Oh my god, this is sick.
What's a mini?
Is this?
Big.
It's like an iPad but smaller.
So please be careful
Oh
with
my
it.
god.
So what's
It's
that?
so
A
There's a
cute.
case for it.
Awesome. And here's the
I
charger.
don't know how to work this thing.
We have to figure it out.